Hello, I'm Elena. Today we're going to do a full pedicure together, including removing the old polish, working on the toes themselves and treating the feet. Here I wanted to clearly show that the polish was worn a little longer than planned, just a bit longer than intended. That's just how it happened. With New Year's, the nails have grown out quite a bit. We can see some very interesting details. Notice that the nails have already started poking into the pads of the neighboring fingers, and because of this there are dents, little holes, and even small calluses appearing. How can you see this? In some places the gel polish has chipped off and needs to be fixed. But as soon as we remove the coating, it will be clear that the nails have grown out a lot, and of course there is pressure inside the shoes, especially considering the fact that in this case the second toe is longer than the first one. And that means you need to choose shoes based on the second toe, not the first big one. So in this case, the shoes were chosen in such a way that it seemed like the foot would fit. But in the end, whether it's a slipper, a shoe, a sneaker, or anything else, that very second toe of hers would bend. And after we take it off, I'll also show that there's a callus there. Well, not a corn, but a callus. There's some keratinization present. Look at how long the nail is. That is how much it managed to grow. Well, I think the coating was on for about 2 months, and of course all of this was getting in the way. Yes, right now it's important to emphasize that you should never wear nails for this long, but of course it's not fatal and everything can be fixed. It will just take a lot of work. And why is this necessary? Of course, the client will probably also feel discomfort in this situation because these nails simply dig into the shoes or into each other. And the person starts to feel tension, but the thing about this tension is that it's gradual, it's monotonous, and eventually it becomes very familiar. So if you are under pressure for a long time, over and over again, you start to perceive it as normal and think that this is how it should be. But as soon as you trim those little nails, everything falls into place. Well, by the way, the same thing happens with people. If they are forced into some uncomfortable conditions over time, they get used to it, adapt, and start to think that this is how it should be. And as soon as they get rid of their tyrant or abuser, if you will, they immediately realize and think, wow, how did I even live like that all this time? How could that have happened? Alright, we've gotten a little off topic. I've already removed the coating, wiped off the excess dust, and now I'm using straight edge clippers to get rid of the free edge. We're not going to make square nails here, we'll round them a little, we just need to do it correctly. And you often ask me how to cut nails properly. Is it supposed to be done like this? The main thing is to make sure there are no snags left in the corners. Next we take a small nail file. Everyone asks me about the sizes, and I think this is a size M. I'm not very knowledgeable about nail file sizes. I simply use what's comfortable for me, a small file for pedicures and a larger one for manicures. Comfort is the most important factor when working, not other less significant aspects. Next, we start filing the free edge. As you can see, the shape isn't square, it's more rounded. And that's also within the normal range, especially during the closed-toe shoe season, because the corners can get in the way and, on the contrary, create unnecessary pressure, which, by the way, can also cause onycholysis. Next, we take a curette or a tampon holder. In general, whatever it's properly called doesn't really matter. But after I used a softening agent called Prantaman, it's a liquid that you spray on the skin and it gives a slight maceration effect. So anything that's not supposed to be there, any unnecessary bits of skin that are stuck somewhere, all of that softens and can be removed quite easily. So in our case here, I'm using a curette, probably instead of a pusher, because I use it to remove the pterygium both from the nail and under the nail. I get all that stuff from under the nail, there's so much of it there. And once again, I'm using my favorite powder and oh no, I'm running out of it. Someone wrote to me that in some city exactly the same one is being sold. Girls, could you possibly send me a few bottles? It's simply not available here in Kazan and I'm unsure what to do. Well, anyway, I ended up deciding to go back to pusher to push back my cuticles. And here you also need to remember that a pedicure is not the same as a manicure, so I don't recommend doing any intense cuticle pushing or digging out pockets. And no pathology specialist will advise you to do that either. Because these are your feet, they'll be in socks, they'll be in shoes, we'll be walking on them, and any injury can have very, very bad consequences. Let me remind you that our feet sweat. And very few clients bring clean socks after the procedure, even though I mention it quite often. I think you should bring a clean, good cotton pair with you. Breathable socks that you put on right after your pedicure on your newly freshly pedicured feet. After all, you've already worn your old socks, even if just briefly at home. But still, your foot got a little sweaty and bacteria could have built up there. If there are micro injuries, and there definitely will be because this is a pedicure, you know how it is, then later the technician gets blamed, the pedicure was done badly, and so on. In general, this is of course just my personal opinion. Maybe someone will disagree with me, but this is what I recommend to my clients. So after you sprinkle the powder, you push back the cuticle, but not too much, just very gently without digging or tearing under the cuticle, just push it back moderately. Next, we applied the powder and used my favorite drill bit. It's a pedicure drill bit with a red and blue notch. Next, we use nippers to trim. As always, my nippers are from Neponov, and by the way, the drill bit is from Bioteki, and the nail file is from Atisa Prantamana. That's the brand. Well, I think I've told you everything. And of course, I used a bud-shaped drill bit to smooth out the cuticles, in case anything was sticking out or not fully trimmed. So, our toe pedicure is already finished. This is how our beauties look now. We won't be applying any polish to the feet, we'll leave them without any coating for now, so they can, so to speak, breathe and rest. To clarify, the person lying on their stomach is not a client. Also, I'm wearing slippers. This is my very close, my closest and dearest friend who has been through absolutely everything, and I experiment on her. And actually, she's the one who suffers because of me. Yes, she goes without a pedicure for 2 months and so on. Actually, she doesn't come to me for a pedicure, but to my specialists. But here I also had pododiscs from Atisov. By the way, I really wanted to try it on her because, well, of course, as always, Darren, I'm sorry, but honestly, I don't really feel bad for you. But of course, I didn't hurt her. We were just testing and did a quick treatment only on the calluses. We hardly touched the foot itself. I used a very coarse abrasive, and people later said 60 grit is too harsh, but it worked for us. I was gentle and didn't overfile. And of course, I know, and I'll tell you that when removing calluses on the foot, for example on corns, you should never file off 100%. And then people wrote to me like, oh, you didn't remove the corn completely. I didn't remove it completely because filing it down to the pink flesh would prevent the client from walking afterwards. And we don't need that. We act carefully and knowing her foot for so many years, I want to say that right now it's in the best condition it's ever been. Because before the calluses were just out of this world, considering that she has flat feet. There were many other adventures as well, but that's another story, one about the orthopedist. By the way, right now I'm showing these very discs, and I showed how I removed them with an orange stick, but it turned out that the hole there isn't just for nothing. It turns out that with their help you can remove this very file, because people were writing to me saying it's difficult, and I'm like, no, it's not difficult at all. I do it with an orange stick, I use an orange stick, and I put the file on and take it off, but it turns out that a stopper bit fits into the little hole and just pops the file off easily. But I only found this out after I finally had the sense to just watch a basic online course on this podiatry technique by Atatisov, and that's it. By the way, this actually solves most of the problems. And here I'm showing you how I worked intuitively at first, just by watching a video on their page. But I also mastered this result, and in the course, for example, I figured out the foot filing process in much more detail. And I realized that I also need to order buffers for the discs. Has anyone tried these buffers? So it's like a regular buffer, but you stick it onto this thing and then it polishes the foot. Then I used the oil and it really won me over because it smells so nice and polishes everything so well. Here, by the way, everything was fine with the polishing for me too. We rub in the oil and as you can see, the foot turns yellow and it looks like I haven't done anything to it at all. However, that's not true at all. I inspected it closely, touching and nearly licking it. In short, everything there is smooth and filed with a 320 grit file. I went over it, polished the foot, or maybe rubbed in some oil. I did something similar. It was a very pleasant and nice procedure. Zarina instantly desired the same oil for herself, saying it was cool and absorbed rapidly. But now, after watching the online course, yes, I really do see some minor flaws, but they're insignificant. As mentioned, I'm fine practicing pedicures on myself. From now on, my pedicures will be better quality. But I think this result is also quite decent. Leave your comments below. This was Aliona. See you next time.